It's been a hot minute. I think the last time we released one of these was in 2021, maybe
Seriously?
22. It's
I think
it's
it
been a
was.
long time.
Yeah, it was.
But yeah, welcome to the Team GPT podcast. I am your host Syed with my good friends Ryan and Brian. We are back, and we're actually gonna try to liven things back up again. I don't have the vigor I once was during these intros, but I'll try my best. Yeah, yeah, it's been a while since we've done one of these. So, as always, at the top, right,
Oh my
podcast is this podcast is sponsored by Gleason Performance Training. Gleason Performance
And Bud Light.
Training, achieve your dreams.
God. That's
You know,
all we got.
that's all we got. Work in
Is that
progress.
is that the new slogan? Achieve your dreams.
No, it's
Achieve your
definitely
dreams.
100% not.
Well,
We're
okay. Yeah,
Wow,
we'll
episode
work on that.
episode 33 3 years ago. I feel like it has not been that long since we recorded.
It has been.
I mean, a lot has happened in that time. In 3 years, people,
That's what happens.
a lot of things happened. 3 years ago, people were working out from home for no other reason other than just pure passion.
Yes.
Yeah. Um, and the sport of powerlifting generally has changed, at least from a someone who hasn't competed since the last time we did a podcast. Um, and I just kind of wanted to, as we're getting back into it, talk about what we've seen in the past couple of years and how powerlifting has changed and what you guys are currently seeing in the powerlifting community and what caveat or in addition to that, sort of what you expect the world of powerlifting to continue growing towards in the next couple of years.
I don't know how much it's changed in that time frame because apparently I'm old and I just think everything's not that long ago. Um, I don't know. I mean, I think I was talking to a couple people about this today. Actually, like social media is going to be obviously the biggest driver. Like the sport has been just growing at like an exponential rate. Um, I'm actually trying to like the reason I'm not looking at the camera because I'm looking above and trying to figure out like some actual numbers um, on my computer. But I know like USA powerlifting, which is primarily what we're involved in. Um, Again, the rate has just been really kind of wild on the growth. Um, and I think a lot of that is due to people seeing on social media and having a little bit better idea of like what's going on.
Is
Um,
powerlifting still like the fastest growing sport so far?
well, I don't know about that, but I know like so I have the membership numbers right now from November. I don't have them for December yet. Um, November of 2022, USAPL had 25,737 members. November of 2023, we had 32,971. So I mean, an extra 5,000 and change 7,000 and change. Sorry, I read that backwards. So 7,000 and change members in 1 year. And I'm going to assume that most of those are probably new. Um, we at the end of November we were still 5,000 ahead of the full membership of last year. And like I said that's without the November numbers, without the December numbers, so it's probably even higher than that. Um, so I think we see the sport growing quickly. A lot of new people, a lot of younger people, which is great. I think the negative of it is I was talking to someone else about this is that it seems like in USAPL a large percentage of that membership never actually competes. Now that's fine. I think that's someone like me. I'm a coach. I'm a state chair. I'm a ref. I do all these things, but I'm not actually competing. So some people argue that membership wise, that's a little bit different. I don't really care. Um, but I think the bigger issue is more like something like 60 to 70% of lifters are doing one meet and not competing again in the near future. That meaning being within like at least a year, if not longer. meaning that they're trying the sport and leaving, or at least not competing in it. So I think the bigger question going forward is not so much how much change, but how do we change it to keep people going? Um, as I've been coaching people that have now been competing for 10 years. And there's people that have obviously competing way longer than that. We've got members that are competing 40 years. Um, so it's how do we keep them in the sport longer and keep doing it and grow through it. And I think that's a big thing. I think with a lot of the new stuff, like you said, it's almost breeding this quicker in and out of the sport mentality than staying in it longer. So I think it's more about kind of like fixing that. I'm rambling. Brian, go.
I mean, I can see it from that perspective, but at the same time, like every meet is selling out. I mean, all our meets are selling out pretty quickly.
Sure.
They just announced to sign up for nationals, and last year it sold out in like a day. Like I think the biggest problem for people that are still consistently competing is like signing up on time and getting into meets, which is a good problem. So I guess from a different perspective, that I think it seems like it's bigger than it's been. That also could just be us coming back from ultimately, kind of struggling to keep up.
But to my knowledge, it's also increasing like participation wise, but also becoming a lot more competitive over time. Like, so
Mm-hmm.
people are joining the sport that are actually like super strong. Not that everyone is as strong, but as people come into the sport, more people who are very strong enter the sport more, and thus making the ability to qualify for a lot of these events much more difficult. So I think um, it's interesting to see how I guess how would you interpret that in terms of are people so focused on pushing the numbers for competing so much higher that that's what causes the burnout? Is it a chicken or the egg thing? Is it just sort of whatever?
I mean,
Go ahead.
I think it was there was a while where I think there hasn't really. It's slowly becoming the pattern it should be, where you have to qualify for um, at tiers. Like we just started putting in, for this year our state champs, you have to have a qualifying total. Or qualifying dots total. I think it's slowly becoming it where it's like every normal sport where you have tiers where there's local meets, there's state champs, there's regionals, there's nationals, international meets. I think people are continuously, as the sport grows, people come out of the woodwork, people that wouldn't, haven't heard of the sport before, or now that the sport is bigger, can jump into it that wouldn't. So the talent pool is way bigger. Yeah, but I feel
Yeah.
like I've been saying that forever. It's just like there's always some teenager who's like so much stronger than me. So I've been upset for a decade now. So I don't know.
You've gotten used to it.
Yeah, I'm cool with it.
No, I mean like I'm sorry, I'm trying to actually do like look up some of these things. So I I think of the first national championship that I coached at for USAPL was 2011. So I've been saying I've been doing this for about 10 years. I was wrong. It's now going to be 13. Um, but that year, I'm trying to look. So my lifter that year that I coached a few people, but in particular Carl LaRover Jr. Carl was third in the 110 class that year, and he totaled 717.5 kilos. Um, and that was, like I said, that was third in the country. So we were talking about how much more competitive it's gotten, and how we're starting to have this like actual breakdown of how to do, like, kind of get in the sport. So something like we ran our first rookie meet last year where it was literally just for first time lifters. And that was great because we spent a little bit more time on trying to get them to understand what's going on. And to not have to worry about competing so much is just kind of going out there and being a part of the sport for the first time. And then, like Brian said, so this year, our state championship meet, we did put a DOTS qualifier on it. We set it fairly high with the intention of making it a true like state championship meet where only the best people will qualify for it. So we wanted to make it difficult. So now like we've got all of our local meets throughout the year where everyone can do them. Um, but then, like I said, now you've kind of got like that stepping stone of where you can be. So now that I finally have the numbers up, so Carl, like I said, in 2011 was third in the country. His total that this year would have placed him 211th. And that's just one weight class. That's just the 110 guys. That class that year, like I said, he came in third with a 717 total. This year, Ashton Ruska won that class with a 968 total. That's wild. Like the sport's gotten so much stronger, just wild, which is great. But it does lead to those problems of how do we kind of manage everything? Because people want to compete, and I think the problem is they kind of get into a meet where they think they're going to compete, and then they get beat by 150 kilos, and it's not as fun if you're just getting blasted. Because even though we try to tell people like you're competing against yourself, you're trying to better your own numbers, it is still a sport where you're competing against each other. So you'd like to do well, you'd like to try to win, and if you're just going to get annihilated, then it's kind of like, well, what am I doing here? And I think having the levels to that is an important thing. Years ago, to qualify for nationals, you just had to have done a meet. As long as you did a meet and totaled 75 kilos, you could go to nationals. Now the qualifying totals are to the point where a lot of people that have gone to nationals on multiple occasions can no longer make it, which is good. It's a good problem. But we need to kind of focus that on the way down too, of like, how do we get some of those people that are maybe one step below to have like a level meet for them where maybe they can compete, and then have another step down to, maybe where it's, maybe there's 4 or 5 levels. So everyone has a true competition and not just doing it for the sake of doing it. I think that's a lot, like there's a lot involved with that. So that's going to be tough. But also I think just like like Brian said, like our meats are selling out, which is great, but it's also just the change in meats. The quality meats is a lot different. I mean, I don't think there was a live stream nationals until maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and now we live stream all of our meets, and I'm just bought a third camera, and we're doing all this stuff and trying to do more. So it's good because it gets the sport out to more people, but it's also changing it because now meet directors have to do even more and more. And I saw one today that was like ban video walls in 2024 because it takes away from the lift itself. And I personally agree with that. I don't think it's cool. I think it might look cool for a second, but it then takes away from the actual event.
Yeah.
As a baseball player, if there was a video wall behind the batter, I'd be very pissed off. I don't know why it's okay for us. So that's a little bit, that I think that draws some people in because it looks cool, but I think it also has a big change on how everything is kind of done. And I'm not sure which way we go from there.
On a more, I guess, at a director level for you, having to always step up your game in terms of meat quality, was there ever a point where you feel discouraged on like, wow, I really don't want to do a meet because it's just now you have to keep going higher and higher. And I'm assuming as more people compete, they're going to be competing with a lot of these amenities, and then they'll end up going to a meet where, oh, they don't have this many amenities, so like it turns them off from the sport. I'm wondering
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
So I don't think that I don't ever feel like I don't want to run a meet. I just there are many times where I'm like, man, I got to learn something new or I got to buy something new. Um, like since you ran it last time for us, we had a 2-camera setup. That was we've been live streaming now for probably a couple years, but very simple, as easy as possible. Now we added a 2-camera setup, and we tried that out where you were flipping back and forth. The plan going forward, like I said, I got a 3rd camera, so now the goal is to try to do a backroom camera, a platform camera, like an on deck camera, a commentary camera, which we need to figure out commentary. So, I mean, you went from being able to run a meet pretty easily with some equipment and some staff, and now we've added multiple staff. We've added a lot of equipment. Luckily, because I have my own place, it's just easy to kind of set up. But if you're traveling, if you're a meet director that goes places, it's a lot of extra stuff. I literally just got back home about an hour ago because I went out and bought 5 new 50-inch TVs to replace some of the smaller TVs that I have in the gym for meets. The first meets that I was around, there were no TVs. There weren't even computers. It was just all cards, all written. So now it's the fact that I'm going to have somewhere between 5 and 9 TVs set up in the gym to run a meet, and we're running, I don't know, 4 or 5 computers and 3 to 4 cameras. It's a lot. It's all stuff that has no direct effect on the meet.
Oh,
Right?
it's a
It's
huge
not like
production.
It's not like we're getting different equipment. It's like we have all of our equipment. It's good equipment. We've been using the same stuff for years. We have the same spotting crew. We have the same judges. Like everyone, like meet wise, everything is running more smoothly than it used to, but it's the same thing. It's all the background stuff that tries to grow the meet bigger. That's what's going on. Having photographers and videographers coming through at local meets. The first time they did that at nationals, I was like, oh, that's kind of cool, but like I wasn't that worried about it. And now it's like, wow, we're trying to do this at local meets so people can get footage. And then we had to put in media passes because we had so many people in the back room that were filming that we were getting in the way of lifters. So it's things that like I never thought we were going to have to worry about, that I'm probably thinking more about now than I am about the actual lifting, which there's times where that drives me nuts. And there's times where it's kind of cool because like then you can see yourself on the TV and your friends that can't make it can watch it. So that's kind of cool. I've talked to people about maybe doing a bare bones meet where none of that happens. We just go back to basics and like run a meet, charge a little bit less money, no lights, no camera, like just nothing. But the negative is like, are we going to get less people? As Brian said, like we're selling out every meet. So I don't know.
I think that stuff, like there's a difference between stuff that creates a better lifter experience. There's stuff that makes the meets run smoother for the lifter and the people running it. And then there's just fucking wild shit like that doesn't need to happen. I don't know when, like I think it's slowly, and I've been to a few meets with this, that like I wonder if people were hoping to go to like an 80s hair metal show or like a powerlifting meet. And I think it's cool, and like we're maybe straddling the line as a sport where it's like, are we wrestling or are we powerlifting? Which is, it's cool. Like
Sports entertainment.
Right. Are we in entertainment? But it's I don't know. I've been to meets with pyrotechnics and red carpets, and I think that's fucking stupid. But lifters like it. So it's hard for me to be like, I would hate to lift on that. I still really enjoy, like, I still love local meets. And maybe I compare it to like music. I love shows where I'm in the same room with the band and they're right in front of me, compared to like looking up at a huge stage with lights and pyrotechnics and shit. There's stuff where that's fun and that's warranted. But I still think that should be like reserved for maybe like the national meets or like every now and then, compared to like is the standard now that we have, I don't know, just like wild productions. Right. And who is that for? Is that for people who are live streaming, for the lifter? Where are we going with that, I guess?
So if it makes you feel better, Brian, I do have a red carpet in my Amazon cart ready to be purchased. I just haven't done it yet.
Yeah.
And I'm not kidding. Yeah. No, I mean, like a lot of us talk about things. I think even though the sport is growing fast, it's still a tiny sport. Yeah. Like I said, USA Powerlifting, I know we're not the only federation, there's more, but to have 33,000 plus members, like that's a really small sport when you think about it, like actual numbers wise. Like if you, I don't know, looking up, trying to look up some numbers.
I
Like
also
it
think
just
it's a sport that I think the reason probably why we're so engrossed in it is we live in an echo chamber with our own
yeah,
biases, and then on top of that, I think it might be one of the few sports that it's so adjacent to be a professional into it. Like you're not a lot of other sports have such a low barrier to entry that you're in it and then you're competing with like people around the country.
Yeah.
You know, versus
right,
at like tennis or basketball, you have to go through tournaments, you have to, be at different levels before even meeting someone
right.
from a different state.
Yeah.
So I think that's also probably one of the appeals, and I think that's why people want to get sort of the feeling of like, oh, I am a professional athlete, even though, I mean,
Not.
they are no, they're professional athletes. They commit time and effort to doing this, but it's also a very small sport that like has their extremes. And I feel like one of the things that at least, I mean, the goal for me is hopefully I want to compete again soon, but I'm also scared that you put on this huge show with cameras and pyrotechnics and red carpets, and I go out there, and I'm like, wow, this guy sucks.
But you'll look really cool though.
Oh, look, amazing,
Yeah.
but wow, this guy is terrible. Why is he
Yeah.
even here?
That's all right.
And I
But
think that's like the weird.
yeah.
That's the weird thing of like. I think I just looked it up. Like, so 13 million people played soccer at least once in the U.S. last year. Like, we're a joke. We're 33,000 people to 13 million. Like, it's kind of a joke. But we can do these things. We have the ability to do these things now, like, and fairly easily. I mean, I'll be honest. Like, I didn't know what I was doing, but like setting up the two cameras wasn't the end of the world. And now that we know how to do two, we can do four or five, like almost as simply, and we can up the production value a ton. And I think if you think about all kind of sports, like if we want to grow the sport, if we're in this sport, we have to grow it. And if we want to grow it, we have to do these things that are going to want people to do it. And if you look at other sports, like, like Brian said, wrestling, but wrestling was all over the country before, WWE, as WWF, and like really, and like blew it up on TV. It was all over the place, but it was in little places in like little towns, and like and some people would go watch it. It wasn't a thing, and now it's this massive thing that everyone watches. And same thing with other sports. Like, yeah, you would go to the game, but like it wasn't like the Super Bowl where billions of people are watching, or the World Cup where billions of people are watching, because like you can now. So that's one of the ways. Like I said, like to the World Cup. I've never been into soccer. I watched the World Cup a few years ago. I am in now, and I watch soccer. Like I wake up on Saturday mornings to put soccer on TV. Um, if I didn't see the World Cup on TV, there's no way this would be happening. So my thought is like with all this extra stuff that we're doing, we film a meet, we throw it on Instagram, it's on Facebook, it's on YouTube. Maybe someone will see it and it's like, well, I've been going to the gym. That looks kind of cool. Maybe I'll try it. So
But
yeah,
so
I've kind of changed my mind on a lot of that stuff. I don't necessarily love all of it. And I think having a stepping stone, I've literally written up a plan for stepping stone meets where it'd be like rookie meet, local, state, regional, thing like that. But I'm not sure anymore if doing like, just because it's a rookie meet means we don't treat it like a bigger meet. I think you can still put all the production value in and let them have just as great a time as they would at a bigger meet. So hopefully they'll come back. I think if we do this bare bones meet and they're like, well, why did I get that? And they got that. It's like, just because they're better than me. And I'm like, and they're not wrong, because it's not professional sports. It's not the NBA where those guys are on TV, but the G League's not. Like we have the ability to put all these on. So I don't know. I think I've kind of changed my mind on that, but probably because I'm doing it now every 7 weeks. Um, but I mean, like I've been running meets for, I've been going to meets for 13 or 14, and I've been running them for at least a decade. Like they're way bigger now than they were before. I mean, Brian knows the first meet we did in Connecticut, like he competed. I think we had 7 lifters.
yeah.
We had more staff there than lifters. And now we have a meet next weekend with 70. and we already have a meet in March with 60, and then we have a meet in May with that's already at like 35, and I'm going to add some more meets, and I'm sure we're going to sell those out too. So like, that's cool. Like that's a good thing. It's a good problem. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Like, it just I think we need to figure out the best way for everyone to kind of understand like what the sport is, and that that the show is not the main thing. It's just an add on. The main thing is still lifting weights, competing with yourself, competing with against people, and then getting to be on YouTube is like a bonus.
So like, but going back to that point, like you referencing the World Cup, like you watched it and you're in. Are there fans of powerlifting that aren't powerlifters? Like I don't know. I think I always see this argument like we need to like get professional powerlifters to get paid, be professionals. And I've always pushed back on that because it's like we're not, no one's gonna be Lionel Messi. Like no powerlifter is gonna transcend and like have fans where like they watch it and like, wow, I'm a fan of this sport, but I'm never gonna fucking do it. Like that to me in powerlifting, fans of powerlifting are powerlifters. So it's different from
No,
like promoting sport compared to like growing it as competitors.
but I think like so I had someone reach out for the meet coming up, and it just didn't work out schedule wise. But his nephew was visiting from California into Connecticut, and they saw the meet was available, and he's like, "Oh, I want can my nephew jump in?" I said, we're booked solid right now; it's closed up." And I explained to him like he's like, "I don't know even know anything about powerlifting," but he wanted to come watch because of his nephew, and it's the thing of like maybe then his nephew will get him into it,
Right.
maybe not, but like
Right.
I think you have to have an interested fan to maybe become a lifter at some point anyway. Like, and the best way to get them interested is just to have them see it. So like I said, if it's all over social media, you're more likely to see it. I mean, we look at the gym now. Like when I started coaching, I coached a few powerlifters and primarily athletes, and now we have a ton of powerlifters in the gym. And that would not have happened 13 years ago because they didn't know about it. I remember going to meets like that were 12 people in the audience and 15 people lifting, and that was it. And now, like I said, you look at our meets, and next weekend we'll have 70 lifters. We'll probably have well over 100 spectators. We'll get a few views on YouTube, not a ton, but like at the end of the day, we're gonna have like probably close to 400 people that saw that meet happen, which is 375 more than it would have been 10 years ago.
Right.
So I think it's a start. Whether or not they actually end up doing a meet or not, it's a start. At least maybe they reach, and maybe they are interested. Maybe they're not. But at least, it's something. It's a new experience for them, and maybe they'll mention it to someone else, and someone else will be like, "Oh, I didn't know about that," and maybe they'll find it cool. So I think it is what it is. Like you're not going to do something if you don't know about it. So us getting it out there is in whatever way, I think is fine.
Yeah.
It's just that we're old and it's not the same.
I mean, do you ever have conversations with ex competitors that are like, yeah, I don't compete anymore, but I go watch powerlifting meets? I feel like that's a small population.
I don't think that exists. I don't know. I could be wrong, but I mean, unless it's like, well, so that kind of leads into like, so like, if someone was a member of our gym, or like, and that exists where there's friends of our, people that are still trained but aren't competitive powerlifters, and they're like, hey, I'll come by and watch my former teammate or like someone I see at the gym go lift. That exists, like that at a local. So to me, I always get annoyed when people are like, we need these professional athletes, we need to build up these people and pay them all this money, and that's cool, but that's not what grows the sport because they're not going to generate fans that aren't powerlifters. The local meets generates fans. Like
Yeah.
that generates to me the growth of like growing powerlifting is locally. Meets that people can go and find out about the sport, meets that like people do go support people because they know them, and maybe like for lack of like someone tuning in to watch soccer on TV, there's no comparison to that. So at the local level, it's just you turning on the live stream and watching your friend or someone compete, or going to the meet that you wouldn't compete at, but you go support someone else. But
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm sure there's some people that watch powerlifting that aren't competing that just watch it. It's not something that, like, it's not necessarily the world I live in, so I don't know in that regard. But like you said, like, there's a lot of people that show up to meets that either used to compete or do not compete, and they're there to see their friends and family. And I still think that's fine because it's like I said, those are those people that go back to work and be like, oh, I watched so and so squat this weekend, and you're just spreading the word. So I'm not like I don't know. I'm not worried about like is someone sitting at home on a Friday night watching, Friday night powerlifting.
It's
If they're
interesting.
showing up for the meets, I think that's good. And like I said, if they're watching it on YouTube, I think like that means they literally took the time to even look at it. Where like they didn't have to at all because like if you're there, you're probably there for somebody. But like if you actually watch it on YouTube, you can just lie to someone and be like, "No, I watched it, man," and then you didn't watch it. Like so those people are actually putting the time in. Um, like again, I brought up my YouTube page right now just to look, and like we had one meet that had 450 views. I'm trying to see if I can. I have no idea what I'm doing on here, so this is like exponentially hard for me. But I mean, 450 views, like I think that's pretty cool. That 450 people are like, let me go watch a powerlifting meet online. Um, that seems both ridiculous and super cool at the same time.
Yeah.
And I think, like I said, like that's something that needs to be done. Some of them don't have nearly as many views. But like, let me try to bring up like the prime time that we did in states last year. Um, you'd figure that one probably had one of the bigger viewing sessions. Um, you guys can keep talking while I look, so it's not just like we're sounding silly.
Well,
Um,
I mean, I have just sort of like, I mean, in terms
yeah,
of,
like
because what we're seeing,
our state championship meet last year, session two, which was the bigger session, had 843 views. A local meet in Connecticut had almost 1,000 people online watch it. And I know at that meet we had another couple hundred people. So over 1,000 people watched our little Connecticut state meet. Like I know I've changed my mind on a lot of stuff, but that's pretty cool that 1,000 people watched our little meet.
Yeah.
And for me, at least, it's something that like it's kind of cool because like I helped put this thing on that 1,000 people hopefully found some joy in watching. Um,
exactly, meets are sponsored by
so
Gleason
like that's
Performance
kind of
Training.
cool.
Achieve your dreams.
Yes.
I don't know where that came from.
You got to
No, so
achieve
I
your
don't know. Like,
dreams.
and I think sometimes like it's like I know I complain about some of these things and like I don't necessarily want to do them, but I also know like if it's going to bring more people in, it's just beneficial to everybody. If I put on a red carpet and 10 more people sign up, like that's 10 more people to do the meet. That's 10 new members. That's 10 new opportunities as a coach to get new people. It's 10 new opportunities for a photographer to be able to shoot. Like it's building so many different levels of it that like I don't know. I change my mind a lot. Again, I'm old, maybe, but like I don't know. I think it's fine now. I used to complain more. Now I'm like, let's do it. Like I looked at getting like the old school like movie stanchions where you have like the rope going across and like so people like have that blockade and the red carpet, and we did the lights last meet, which I don't know how I did with that, but like it came out okay. I don't know. I think it's cool. I'm
Me
more
So
too.
angry than I
let's
was.
So go
let's
ahead, sir.
say that there was a person comes to our Gleason Performance Training meet, Gleason Performance Training, Achieve Your Dreams. They come to one of our meets. They they see this amazing powerlifting meet. They're like, wow, they do such a great job. I want to start powerlifting. With the way powerlifting is today, how would you sort of what advice would you give someone trying to approach the sport now?
Probably the same thing I've always said. Just jump in.
Yeah.
It's I think too many people are like, when I hit this total, or when I squat this much weight, or when I can win this meet, or whatever. Just do it, because like we've had meets where best lifter was a 407 dots. We've had best lifter where it was a 510 dots. Like, you don't know who's going to show up meet to meet, so you can't, like, competition gets a little bit weird. And you never know what's going to happen on meet day. Like, you might have a great day and hit some new number. You might have a terrible day and hit a bad number, but like, you're still going out there and testing yourself and seeing what you're capable of, and committing to something that you signed up for, that it's, you're making that commitment with yourself to actually go do this, because it's a little scary to get up on the platform in a singlet and have 1,000 people watch you maybe lift a weight and maybe eat shit. But just do it. Like, the worst that's going to happen is you have a day that you don't want, and then you learn from it and you can get better. The problem is, like I said, if you have a bad experience, I think that's where it comes down to, is like making sure these lifters, especially the first time lifters, have a good experience. Maybe then they don't come back. But if we can have a good experience where they enjoy being at the meet, they had a good meet, then maybe they'll come back for another one, and hopefully keep going.
Yeah, I think if they, I mean, I know there's a lot of people that do this, try the sport once, and then they're done, and I wonder how much of that is due to the lifter experience at the meet, and how much of that was like, man, the meet wasn't run well, or some other factor turned them off from it. But the fact that the level of meet directors and how well meets are run now, with just how much advanced technology and how much people putting into it, how much is that going to change because people just enjoy it and like just enjoy the sport at that level? I don't know.
If you are going to do a meet, do one at Gleason Performance Training. Gleason Performance Training, achieve your dreams.